Hi, welcome to Actualol. I'm Jon Purkis. I've played 125 different board games that were released last year in 2018. These are my 15 favourites. If you'd like to buy any of the games in this video, there are Amazon links in the description. A small cut will go towards Actualol, and the rest will go to Jeff Bezos' divorce lawyers. Looking at Luxor, you'd be forgiven for thinking you'd clicked on a video for the best board games of 1918. But this Rhapsody in Beige is proof that board game beauty lies within, which should be Queen Games Company motto. Your adventurers are running into another culture's temple for a spot of finders keepers. To steal an artifact, you need to get enough adventurers to meet there and secure its retrieval. But getting your adventurers where you want is the real challenge of this game. You spend a card to move one of them that number of spaces. Great. Except you can't use all of your 5 cards. You're only allowed to play your first or your 5th, the outer sides of your hand. You can't move cards around in your hand. Their order is fixed. When you draw back up, you place the new card in the middle. It forces you to plan ahead. If you desperately want to move that adventurer 3 spaces, you're going to have to move another adventurer twice first, because you can't access that 3 until you play the 2 cards on one side of it. You have to work with what you're given, and you feel a real sense of achievement when you finally coordinate your adventurers to pick up the artifact you wanted, especially if another player had 2 of their adventurers there and was threatening to grab it before you. You can't spend too long collecting your sets of artifacts because there's a race to get further into the temple. The game ends when 2 adventurers have entered the tomb of the pharaoh, and you get way more points the further in your adventurers finish. Every time your opponents inch further in, it will raise your blood pressure. It's like you're waiting at the gate in an airport. Your flight hasn't even been called yet, so why is Jimmy 2 suitcases moving closer to the gate? You wanted to chill for a bit, but maybe you should stand up too. You don't want to be at the back of the queue. It's a subtle pressure, but it's a nice reminder that you are competing against humans. And it makes me think of Clank or Karuba, another game from Rudiger Dawn. My favourite board game conspiracy is that Rudiger Dawn is just a pseudonym for Reiner Knizia, and you can see why. They both share that ability to innovate and stand out in a room filled with bigger, flashier boxes, and always with lean designs. Turns are quick and you can plan ahead while you're waiting. The setup, the rules, the gameplay is just smooth. Much like Ticket to Ride, Luxor is a game that I can sit back and enjoy. It has been an exceptionally hard year for board gamers who are triggered by the word Tetris, and I won't be helping matters at all in this video. Bricks is a roll and write game. You roll 2 dice which decide which Tetris shape everyone has to draw on their computer screen this round. All your favourites are there. There's zigzag, L shape, reverse L shape, stubby T, and that elusive but oh so sexy long piece. Basically, all the Tetris shapes. Because we're playing Tetris, remember. With every new piece, you'll draw it onto your sheet into a spot where it fits nicely, desperately trying not to leave gaps, because you'll score points for perfectly filled in rows at the end of the game. But how can you make it all fit in neatly when the game keeps throwing the shapes you don't want at you? On your turn, you do get one opportunity to re-roll the dice, hoping for something better, which is always a fun gamble. And you can spend these energy points to rotate your shape. The triangle die tells you which rotation you're given, but these energy points allow you to move along the row to a different option. It can be a lifesaver. To get more energy points, you have to draw a coloured shape over an energy dot of the matching colour, which creates problems. Is it worth ruining the perfect harmony of your grid just to get energy points? Yes, probably. But it can be a hard one for your perfectionist brain to reconcile. Yeah, sex is cool, but have you ever finished off 4 rows in Tetris with a long piece and it makes that awesome noise? Well, bricks can give you the same nostalgia-gasm and will shower you with points if you pull it off. Except you won't, because bricks is brutally hard. The first time I played bricks, I got destroyed. It's not a roll and write you excel at, it's one you survive. If you win, you didn't do well, you did better than everyone else. I love these kind of punishing roll and write games because you feel like one day you'll push your luck and it will pay off. Until then, I'll settle for failing upwards. Isn't nature beautiful? Yes, but only when it's illustrated by Beth Sobel. Sunset Over Water is a card game from the king of the fillers, Dr. Finn. You play as competing painters, getting up early to hike into the countryside and smash out enough watercolours to fill a commission. The player who sold the most landscapes wins and suffers the biggest millennial burnout. So quick, get out there and commit it to canvas before someone else does. Some rich prick wants 3 landscapes of waterfalls to stick in the toilets of his new wine bar. These cards represent your plan for the day, what time you'll get up, which direction you can hike in, and how many paintings you've got in you. If you get up before everyone else, you can shotgun those areas of natural beauty, so that anyone else planning to paint them today has a wasted trip. You've got to think about what everyone else is likely to do. You can see what landscapes they've already painted, and you know what commissions you're competing over. So which direction are they likely to head this round? And if you can't get up earlier than them, is it worth pivoting to fulfill a different commission instead? I've got a lot of little card games, and Sunset Over Water feels different to all of them. I love how this game has you concerned about what everyone else is doing. And don't be fooled by the theme, it packs a lot of depth into 20 minutes. In Pikoko, your hand of cards are fanned out as peacock feathers, so that everyone can see them except you. Your job is to look at everyone's assets, or asses, and assess how many tricks you think they'll win. It's a betting game, and yet all the information is in front of you. You can imagine how every trick will play out, who will trump who and when. You've got the Grey Sports Almanac, Marty. You know how these peacocks McFly. Except there's one page missing, your own. Your cards are your blind spot. For all you know, they could win all the tricks and spoil your bets. You can get a sense about them from what other players bet on you, but just like real betting, you ultimately have to go on a hunch. And when that hunch pays off, it feels incredible. The excitement of gambling is in clinging to a dream and seeing it fall apart or succeed in front of your eyes. Being able to blame yourself for that failure just makes it all the better. Pikoko is a trick-taking game like no other, and that's why I love it. Cooperative games are great for making you feel things. Robinson Crusoe makes you feel the impossible odds of surviving on a deserted island. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective makes you feel like a bunch of detectives discussing a case. And Gloomhaven makes you feel like you should move to a bigger house. In Forbidden Sky, I feel like I'm in a Chris Pine movie, on top of a floating platform, trying to connect up a circuit while getting blown around by gusts of wind and trying to avoid getting struck by lightning. Which is good, because that's what they were going for. You're moving around trying to place tiles in the right way to build a real electrical circuit. These wires and resistors connect up to power the rocket. What better way to give players the feeling of what they're doing in the game than to make them actually do it for real? As Chris Pine would understand, connecting up an electrical circuit is nothing to a rugged engineer with an absent father complex. What makes it tricky is the constant threat of death. Every turn, nature will have its say. The wind will blow you across the platform, making it hard to stick to what you are planning. If it blows you off the edge, it pulls on your safety rope. And if that happens one too many times, you'll die. Be careful about where you end your turn because lightning strikes are a constant threat. If you're stood on a wire that's connected to a lightning rod, you'll be frazzled. I love how all these rules just make sense. I can take or leave the plastic toy. I'm here for that feeling of desperation and importance of teamwork that comes with a Matt Leacock co-op game. And the cinematic setting just seals the deal. Plus, it's the closest I'll ever get to Chris Pine, outside of our fortnightly Skype calls. Pyramid of Penguin is hide and seek the board game. On one side of this magnetic board, 4 penguins are running around this maze trying to collect certain items. On the other side, the villainous penguin is walking the same corridors. She can't see where they're hiding, but if she walks onto the same spot, she'll catch them with her magnet. I know it looks like it's targeted at kids, but so is Haribo, and don't pretend like you don't enjoy that. The beauty of a kids game is that, just like Haribo, it doesn't have many rules. The treasure hunters, or Penguindiana Jones, if you will, and you bloody better if you're letting Penguin slide, those lot are rolling dice and picking a number to move. The queen knows how far they've moved, but not in which direction, until they pick up an artifact and they have to reveal where they are. The penguins have to be really careful to collect their treasure when the queen isn't within range to catch them. But they'll never be too careful because the hunters are racing against each other to cross off their shopping list first to win the game. I love that Pyramid of Penguin boils down the mind games of a hidden movement game into such a neat package. As the queen, you know where they just were. You know their last two treasures are on this side of the map. So did they take the obvious route, or did they take the long way round just to mess with you? Playing as the hunters is full of those heart-racing moments of almost being caught as the queen walks past you. And that's exactly what I want from a hidden movement game. After taking a few years off to make some bad games, Reiner Knizia is back to remind us why we love him, and to show Wolfgang Warsch who really runs things around here. On a graph of complexity versus depth, Reiner Knizia has got everyone beat. This is where the guy lives, and Blue Lagoon is right in there. You do one thing a turn. You place a cardboard circle on this board. Next turn, place a cardboard circle on the board. Turn after that, place a cardboard circle on the board. But why? Because you're characters from Moana who have decided you're welcome to settle these islands, and you're trying to do it better than each other. You turn up in boats and spread out, picking up local produce, trying to make your mark on the islands, and pissing each other off. Blue Lagoon is deliciously confrontational. One of the ways to score points is to create a long trail connecting up as many islands as possible. And if you do that, it will become an impassable blockade for everyone else, which means you will do that, and everyone will try to stop you. There are many ways to score points, and ideally you want to be doing them all at once. Picking up coconuts whilst getting the majority on islands, whilst making a path that connects to all the islands. You can only do one thing a turn, and you want to do everything. So you have to work out what's most important right now. One of my favourite things about Blue Lagoon is the standoffs you have with other players. You'll be right next to the token you want. Your rival is 2 spaces away. They know as soon as they move a space closer, you'll just take it. So you stay there, taunting them, and they wait patiently for a moment later in the game when your attention will be elsewhere and you won't notice them edge closer. Only Reiner Knizia can make something so competitive and frustrating with so little. Well, him and his clone Rudiger Dorn. 2018 was the year of roll and write games, and while Genshin Clever got people excited with combos, and Welcome to seduced strategists with multiple paths to victory, Railroad Inc. did it best by sticking to the original intent of roll and write games, to keep it simple. You roll 4 dice and everyone must draw those roads and railways on their map. You're trying to connect all your exits together to achieve Transport Network Nirvana, which looks a lot like Spaghetti Junction. The joy for me of a great roll and write is that communal feel. We were all given the same cheese and eggs. I made a passable omelette, whereas Archibald whipped up a cheese souffle, and Dave got salmonella poisoning. Unlike other games that complicate the format, in Railroad Inc. there's no waiting for other players. We're all puzzling it out at the same time, and sharing in the pain that those dice deliver. Railroad Inc. is the new poster child of roll and write games. You can pick it up in seconds. It's challenging and satisfying and beautiful enough to carry the genre. I wake up with night terrors at the thought of some poor individual braving the board game hobby for the first time and being scared off for life by the Monopoly card in Catan, or the farmer rule in Carcassonne, or the artwork in Carcassonne. But if that person's only exposure to board games was Railroad Inc., I would feel confident that they're starting in the right place. And if they're still scared off, well, screw them. You think I've enjoyed every book I've read, mate? You're not better than us. Pandemic is one of my favourite games of all time, but even I can't keep up the enthusiasm for every new version of it. Pandemic Fall of Rome was able to break through my usual cynicism by bringing something fresh to a classic. 5 barbarian tribes are marching on Rome, and you'll be working together to fight them off and stop them from sacking the city. It's remarkable how well the original system that once applied to spreading disease now simulates the relentless invasion of troops, done with such a simple twist that you wonder why no one thought of it before. Instead of always placing cubes where the cards tell you, like in normal Pandemic, you put them at the next furthest spot along that tribe's warpath. Each round they'll march closer and closer. You have to recruit legions to fight them off and attack them by rolling dice. Getting rid of cubes is no longer a foregone conclusion, and I like that added suspense. To win the game, you need to collect cards to forge alliances with the tribes, or you can simply wipe them off the map. It's another ingenious little twist that makes perfect sense for the theme and presents you with new decisions you never had in original Pandemic. Just like in Pandemic Iberia, I love that they've committed to the realistic slow movement of the era. You can't fly wherever you want, and walking is as frustratingly inefficient as getting stuck behind a group of tourists trying to use the London Underground. I'm really impressed by how Paolo Mori and Matt Leacock have managed to iterate on what was already a flawless system and still keep it approachable, streamlined, and just as fun. Spring Meadow is a puzzle game where you're trying to fit Tetra shapes onto your board. It's the fourth game in this style from Uwe Rosenberg, and started with Patchwork, which cynically exploited board gamers' love of quilting. Then came a trilogy of games. Mummy Bear's game, Cottage Garden, was too cold. Goldilocks found it lacked tension. Daddy Bear's game, Indian Summer, was too hot. It was overcomplicated with blueberries and nuts. But Baby Bear's game, Spring Meadow, was just right, and Goldilocks went to town on it. With each game, you could see the designer trying out new approaches, and then carrying over the elements that work to the next game. Spring Meadow is the perfect medley of all the good bits. You're trying to fill your board up, completing rows with no gaps. That spatial puzzle, the reason why we love these games, is at the core. There's no side mechanism of money or tracks. You're rewarded for a tidy board. What's even better is it adds puzzling on top of puzzling, because you're trying to get these holes to line up to win rocks, which will fill up your board even quicker. It has all that delicious frustration you want from this type of game, and when you succeed, it will send you straight back to being 2 years old as you push that square peg into that square hole and you look up at your proud parents and your dad says, "Yeah, but why did it take him so long?" Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective is a wonderful game of solving crimes with your friends, but it was released before I was born, which means it's at least 19 years old, well overdue for an update, and definitely not going great, it's just the lighting. Chronicles of Crime brings us up to present-day London, where Baker Street is nothing more than a great song by Gerry Rafferty, and it trades reading on paper, which is for old people and squares, for reading on a mobile app, which is a temporary stopgap until brain uploads are ready. At the start of a case, it puts you in the crime scene by giving you a 3D virtual reality room to look around. It's up to you to spot things of interest that could prove to be useful evidence. As you collect information, you lay it out on the board, building your case. Then you need to start talking to witnesses and suspects. Every person connected to the case is represented by a card. You have to scan their QR code to talk to them. The cleverest part of Chronicles of Crime is that you lead the investigation. You decide what to ask each person by scanning what you want to talk about. It's probably a good idea to ask them about the victim, but maybe you'll get creative and ask them about the victim's daughter's dog toy on a wild hunch because you're just that much of a goddamn maverick. And maybe they'll say they don't know nothing. And maybe you'll realize that this stinking corruption goes right to the top, and even Lucky Duck Games are hiding something. Just like a real case, there's no right way to solve it. You'll get hundreds of fragments of the truth from different places, and the game won't hold your hand in telling you how to piece it together. I love unraveling the mysteries. It has all the joy of watching a whodunit series at home, speculating on the killer, but you get your recognition for having said you thought it was that guy all along instantly, instead of having to write to the TV company. It's a refreshingly different approach to Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, and the app means they can keep releasing cases for it. I'm really excited to try their upcoming expansions Noir and Welcome to Redview. Western Legends is a sandbox board game, inspired by a sandbox video game, inspired by the original sandbox experience, the Wild West. It's called a sandbox game because you have the freedom to do whatever you want. The possibilities are limitless, just like playing in a sandbox as a kid. You could build a sandcastle, or let the sand sift through your hands, or... In Western Legends, you play as a famous Western luminary trying to make a name for yourself. It's completely up to you how you do that. You've got 3 actions, a pocket full of gumption, and a sense of what's wrong and right. You could head to the saloon to play some poker, then go and buy yourself a horse with your winnings. Or you could prospect for gold, rustle cattle, or rob the bank. Whatever you do, you'll want to get the right gear. like this 10-gallon hat that makes your poker victories all the sweeter. And are you a good guy or a bad guy? If you go around robbing your fellow players, then your reputation as an outlaw will get you points every round, until you embarrass yourself by being caught. If you'd rather, you can play Marshal, arresting the outlaw players and winning praise that way. Or do a bit of both. Play the cool mysterious outlaw in your 20s, then clean up your act when you settle down and have kids. You sell out. Compared to other sandbox games like Merchants and Marauders, Western Legends is easy to wrap your head around, with most actions coming down to these poker cards. If you challenge someone to a duel, whoever plays the highest card wins. I love the stories that you can tell in this game. I really enjoy games where you control one character and go on a journey with it. Sure, there's some downtime on other people's turns, but because the world is so engaging, it's fun watching everything happen. Oh look, Mark just got 4 gold nuggets. I guess I know who I'm robbing on my turn. I slogged through Red Dead Redemption 2 last year to reach a linear ending I saw coming a mile off. I had a lot more fun playing cowboys with friends at a table, like real adults. I can't wait for the Anti-Up expansion, which promises to turn this sandbox into a beach. If you got to the end of 2018 and felt like you'd achieved nothing, well, compared to Wolfgang Warsch, you didn't. In 1 year, he not only won the Kennerspiel des Jahres, but had a second game nominated for it, and a third game nominated for the Spiel des Jahres. He released 5 great games, including Bricks, which was earlier on in this list. The Quacks of Quedlinburg, Fuji, and Ganz Clever aren't on this list, but I had fun with all of them. His masterpiece is in applying rules to a deck of cards numbered 1 to 100. It's called The Mind, and it's a phenomenon that, just like Marmite, you either love or you don't understand, because Marmite is brilliant and you're an idiot. You're each dealt a hand of numbered cards, and you all have to intuitively play your cards in order, without talking. You've got nothing to go on. Let's say you've got number 12. How do you know that no one else has a lower number? You don't. And yet, somehow, you do. You wait a moment, no one else has played anything, so you play it down. No one reacts. That's a good thing. If someone does make a mistake, plays a card higher than someone has in their hand, your team loses a life. It creates an atmosphere I've never felt in another game. There's this zen focus, like you're all holding your breath until the round ends. No one's checking their phone or getting distracted, because you know that one false move could cost you the game. It's a real bonding experience too. You're looking in each other's eyes, noticing their small movements, and as the rounds go on, learning their rhythm. If you play with the same group, you will get better, like a band starting to gel. That silent tension is so intense that you'll erupt with laughter at someone's facial expression, and you'll feel like you won the World Cup when you conquer a tough round. I spent an entire evening at a convention, surrounded by hundreds of games I could be playing, instead playing this £10 gem over and over again with the same people. And it might just be a coincidence, but we're now all living on a commune, sharing a bed. This game, it does things. The Mind feels so different, so transformative, that I'll be chasing down all of Wolfgang Warsch's upcoming games, and I'm particularly excited about Wavelength, a party game he's making with the guys behind Monikers, that also has you trying to read each other's mind. We'll never really know why they finally released a big box expansion for the Game of Thrones board game in the year that the billion-dollar TV series it's based on comes to an end, but I'm delighted they did. The original game has a special place in my heart because it was one of the first modern games I fell in love with. Some of my favourite moments in board gaming are the diplomatic talks I had during this game that took place in another room. If a game can create that and make it feel meaningful, it's special. It's so much more than a dudes on a map game. The game is happening above the table in the promises you make to each other, and as you try to read your friend's face. Has he reneged on our deal? Yeah, he has. Better attack him this round just to show him. Oh wait, he didn't, and now you've pissed off your only ally. Well, now you're really screwed. Where there were issues, the Mother of Dragons expansion fixes them. The new vassal system makes it a more interesting game at all player counts by bringing the non-playing houses to life. You can control them and get them to do your bidding. That, coupled with the new Arryn and Targaryen factions, means that unless you play with 8 players every time, it will feel different. The Lannisters aren't destined to be the weakest house anymore. The Targaryens introduce more thematic flavour, a new Essos map, and their own unique win condition. They're trying to conquer parts of Westeros to win loyalty. And they're helped by 3 dragons which get stronger as the rounds go on. I love that they've given players more options. You can now use power tokens to bribe or repay other houses, which makes the negotiation richer. I can use it to persuade someone to attack someone else, or not attack me. Or you can save your power tokens to get a loan from the Iron Bank of Braavos, which has some incredible abilities to destroy castles, assassinate units, or add new supply barrels. But you will have to repay a power token every round for it. Mother of Dragons takes a game I love and makes me love it even more. For now, before the final season pulls a Lost and sullies my memory of the franchise forever. Before I talk about my number 1, if my videos have helped you find games you love, please keep Actualol going by becoming a patron of the channel, which gives you the right to say things like this. Why has he changed the background? I like the wonky triangles. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective is a wonderful game of solving crimes with your friends, but it was released before I was born. And if you've skipped ahead in the video just to find out what my number 1 pick is, you're not going to get this joke. Though you won't be able to tell from the title, Detective, a modern crime board game, is actually a board game where you play a detective solving modern crimes. And boy, if that doesn't tick more boxes for me than that woman I saw working at the box ticking factory. Crime-solving games are pure escapism for me. This isn't an abstracted experience. We are going through evidence, reading interrogation transcripts, choosing what leads to follow, everything a normal detective would face. And this game takes you further in. It's deeper and richer than any other crime-solving game out there. Its unique salivating point is that it blends fiction with fact. As detectives, you will turn to the real-life internet to research details for your case. Rather than bringing us into its world, it brings the case into ours. It's a revelation, and I can't get enough of it. Detectives' best moments, those heated debates and decisions based on a hunch, they rely on our understanding of the real world and of people. More game designers should realize that they're not George R.R. Martin. It's nigh on impossible to build a world from scratch that your players will invest in. So help our imagination by using things we already know, drawing upon the most extensive lore there is. What I love about Detective is how it immerses you from all sides. You get evidence from so many different angles, photos, DNA matches, interviews, court reports, Google Maps, and with an ever-present threat of running out of time or resources. Detective, a modern crime board game, is my favorite game of 2018. I can't wait to try the upcoming LA Stories expansion. Those are my favorite games of 2018. If you want to buy any of them, there are links in the description below. And if you want to learn more about them, I've put links to my full reviews. If you'd like me to make more videos like this, please consider supporting on Patreon. I'm Jon Purkis, thanks for watching.